Welcome to Ken's Korner Podcast, Season 3. Get ready for expert analysis and rising wrestling stars. Now here we go with your host, Ken Judge.
Hi everyone, this is Ken from Ken's Korner, and I'm excited again. I get to sit with a fellow Stouffvillian, Mr. Jason Wilson. He's a book writer, an author, and he's also a musician of a pretty successful band that's actually going to play here later in this month in Stouffville. We'll ask you about that a little bit later. But let's start with your book that apparently is doing quite well. In my research on Amazon, I see it up there for almost $40 for a hardcover. The Toronto Maple Leaf Hockey Club official Centennial. Let's talk about that book, and let's start with your early upbringings and how you became a writer.
Wow. Okay. I'll try, Ken. Thanks for having me. And yeah, so the Maple Leafs book was really something very special, obviously, being a massive Maple Leafs fan. I don't know if you know anything about being a massive Maple Leafs fan.
I don't know.
I see that we're both wearing blue. So yeah, Kevin Shea, the great hockey writer, him and I had collaborated before. We co-wrote a book on Lord Stanley that really looked at not just him donating the Stanley Cup, which everyone knows about, but more about the man and the politician and you know, what he was all about. And that was a lot of fun. So when Kevin got the call to do the Maple Leaf Centennial book, the 100th anniversary, he called me and asked me if I would be interested. And I'm like, what do you think? And so it was a labor of love. It was brilliant. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and one of the things it's done for me is allowed me to add to you know, 2-time Juno nominee, and now I get to add best-selling author beside that, and that's all down to the Maple Leafs and the popularity of the team, of course.
That's amazing. And I guess you're talking the Juno nominee. That is a music thing. So we'll talk a little bit. I didn't actually understand. I got a superstar on my podcast today.
Oh yeah, Jason. Very much. Yeah.
I appreciate that. So your early upbringings on why you became an author. How did that come to? Like,
well,
did you just wake
weird.
up one day and say, "Let's write a book"?
No, it's funny you asked that, because I feel like all the other things I do in my life that I've really had to try, really had to like work at being a musician, you know, getting a degree in history, like I had to work at all of those things. Whereas the writing thing was just, I don't know. I know it sounds cliche, but kind of second nature. And it's I from a young age, I was good with words. I think I've been told, I grew up in a very, very Scottish family in Downju in the northwest of Toronto. And I've been told that because my grandmother and my great aunt lived with me, and even though they were speaking in an Ayrshire dialect, they would be reading stories to me and telling me stories. So I was kind of surrounded by storytelling all day, every day. And I think that played a big role, Ken. Like, if I'm being honest, like I feel like that sort of captured my imagination. And then words just, now math and science, forget it. I was off a grade 10 math, 3 of the best years of my life, as I say. But as for words were just, I could see them. I understood it without, you know, and it's funny, I can't actually explain grammar very well to people, but I know what's right, and I know what isn't right, if that makes any sense.
It makes 100% sense to me. I appreciate your answer. Now, if it's okay, can we talk a little bit about the content of what's in your book? Maybe a few of the passages, exciting things that you really enjoy writing?
Well, for me, so Kevin's role was to try and get the perspective of the players that obviously that were still alive, and he did that wonderfully, and he sort of set out the trajectory of the book and went from decade to decade. My story, my job rather, was to flesh out sort of the historical parts of what was going on at that particular time. So in other words, our very first Stanley Cup team as the Maple Leafs, you know, with Charlie Conacher, Harvey Busher Jackson, Joe Primo, all those guys, the kid line, as many people would know, and King Clancy. that I was to flesh out when that was happening. So I would, I added a lot of context to, we're in the Great Depression. 1 out of 3 Torontonians are out of work at some points. A high percentage of Torontonians are going to the food bank. Well, what was the food bank in those days during this very, very bleak time? And of course, they're able somehow to build Maple Leaf Gardens in 5 months in downtown Toronto. Can you imagine something that size being built today that would take, I don't know, less than 5 years, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a stunning time. I love that. So that's, to answer your question, that's one of my favorite periods, is that sort of that first cup as the Leafs. I know we had won a couple before as the Toronto Arenas and the Toronto St. Pat's won a couple, but that first one for the Leafs really captured my. I think I kind of was into that when I was a kid too. For some reason, the kid line, there was something about that era. Maybe because that's when my grandparents are from, and they went through the Depression, and my mom was born during that time and everything. So maybe that had something to do with it. But yeah, that was one part that really appealed to me.
Awesome. I really appreciate that as well. Okay, we're going to actually just talk about a little bit about our current 2024 Maple Leaf team.
Sure.
I'm going to get you to analyze the Leafs heading to the playoffs. Let's set the table on what you expect, and maybe a bit of prediction from Jason Wilson.
Well, here's my hope. My whole thing going into this year, Ken, is we have to slay these dragons. And the two dragons are the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers it looks like we're going to play them, right? So I think we have to slay them. I think we can. That's the good news. I feel like, I was down at the last Panthers Leaf game, and I think apart from a very short period in the third period, we were all over them. Like the foot speed, just creativity. Like I felt really good about that game. I thought, this is great. I don't feel the same about the Bruins. I know people are saying the Bruins have taken a step back. Fine. But the standings doesn't really tell us that, does it? I mean, they are right up there. I mean, I think they're just behind the Rangers. Like, they are just as deadly as they were last year in my mind. And then watching the Leafs play them, I have this terrible sinking feeling that we go wallflower again, and we shrink for some reason. Our God love him Mitch disappears, and there's just something about that team. So to get to the next level, and it might not even be the Stanley Cup, of course, but just to get to the next level, we have to slay 1 or 2 of those dragons. That's what has to happen.
Yeah.
Hopeful.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, but I'm also a Leafs fan that has not seen a Stanley Cup in my lifetime. So,
Yeah, they last had a Stanley Cup the year I was born. So
there you go.
My brother says that maybe I'll have to leave this world for them to win a game. But anyway, I appreciate that. We're going to take a little bit of a turn here. We're going to talk about your music career, and
Sure.
You're very successful in this as well. And I do know you have a show coming up here in Stouffville. So maybe we can announce that here on Ken's Corner.
Absolutely. Yes, we're playing on Saturday, April 27th at 19 on the Park. On Main Street, the lovely little theater there. And it's someone told me it's my 10th time playing there, which is just but it's true. Like, I thought, no, it can't be. But I went through it. It's actually the 10th time. So the great news is I love playing. I call it hometown now. It really does feel like my hometown. The bad news, I suppose, I don't know when the podcast is going to go out, Ken, but I think there's like half a dozen tickets left. Like, I think we're just almost sold out. So if you're watching and you see that, you got a chance, but you'd have to act pretty quickly. So yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. I love playing here.
And your name of your band, please?
So it's Jason Wilson and Ashra. It's led by myself, but I've got a fantastic band behind me. Oh man, we've got Ali Hutton, who's a bagpipe player and whistle player from Scotland. We're flying him over. One of my secret weapons is Carl Harvey, who's this fantastic Jamaican Canadian guitarist who was Toots and the band, Maytel's band leader for years. So it's a whole bunch of things. It's got some folk, it's got some reggae and a whole bunch of things in between, and it's a very exciting show. It's a fun show. We have a couple of beautiful dancers that they're incredible, and they come out and do some things throughout the show, and people are always like, whoa, what's happening here? There's a dance show all of a sudden. So yeah, it's a fun event. It's a fun night.
Awesome. And to answer your question, I've got a heck of a editor here on Ken's Corner, so this will be up by tomorrow night, I guarantee you.
Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to ask you how your fans or anyone who wants to read your exciting book on the Maple Leafs, where can they find Jason Wilson's social media outlets and their book?
Sure, absolutely. So the place to start would be the website is jasonwilsonmusic.com, pretty straight ahead. Same kind of thing for Facebook, Jason Wilson Music, and the same for Instagram as well, jason.music.wilson, I think. So that's the socials, and please come and say hello. As far as the book is concerned, we are down to the tickets for the Stouffville show. We're down to the last few. I think there's not many left. I think we sold, 15,000-20,000 copies. So we did reasonably well, but the bad news is there's not that many out there. I think your best bet is Amazon.ca, and as I say to everyone that talks about the Leaf book, if you can find me, if you get a book and you find me, I'll definitely sign it and be happy to do so.
Well, April 27th, you'll be right at 19th
That's right.
on the park.
That's right. That's right.
There's a perfect spot to start. No, this is the best part of my show. It is getting to the end of the show, but I'm going to leave the floor open to anything that you want to add to what we're talking about here today, Jason.
Well, I think for those that do get to read the book, certain eras, and I'm sure it is for you as well, Ken, that you grew up with and that speak to you in a certain way. Well, I had at that very Florida Panthers game I was talking about, one of those moments where we were in a booth upstairs, and someone came down and said, Daryl's upstairs signing autographs if you want to go. So Daryl was my guy. he was the guy, right?
I love him. Yes.
Yeah, I had 27. I had the whole deal, and so my wife was with me, and she said, "You look like this nervous little kid." Here I am. I've written 8 books, 2 Juno Awards, and I don't care. I was starstruck. It was Daryl Sittler right in front of me, and hung out just for a couple of minutes with him and got a picture. So that particular era, writing about that era where it's so personal, where it's so you remember everything, about that time. That was the most special part of the book for me.
Thank you so much. My name's Ken, and we're here on Ken's Corner with Jason Wilson. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today, Jason. It has been all our honor here. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thanks for having me.